and so to Iraq and so on, and Turkey. And what people have discovered is that the origin of corn comes from that same area, which is then taken and spread through the world. In fact, if you look here, the Fertile Crescent, this area here, and you can see how it was taken and spread through different parts of the world. Agriculture, generally speaking, begins in the same area. And here's a quotation from a conference that took place in 1969, a world conference on this. What we see today is decisive evidence that agriculture in the old world arose in a single connected region, a nuclear zone of Anatolia, Iraq, Syria. Let's look at the origin of domestic animals. Again, what we find, scientists tell us, it's the same area that you find that. And you find thousands of bones of different animals that are found, domestic animals, whether sheep or goats or dogs and so on. Domestication of some of the bones that were discovered in that area. It was the origin of metallurgy, of metalwork, and going right back, in fact, they reckon, the oldest metal factory was found by a chap called Dr. Kriyat Mukherjee in Medzamor, 15 miles from Ararat, and it was dated about 2500 BC. You also find the origin of wine, very important for those who like wine, but this was here, the vineyards. But again, the earliest record of wine was found and carbon dated from that same place. Origin of language. Again, language has been sort of traced back to various, a group of languages, but a number of people reckon there was a proto-language from that same area. Here's something from Scientific American. The landscape described by the proto-languages as now resolved must be somewhere in the crescent that curves around the southern shores of the Black Sea, south from the Balkan Peninsula, east across the ancient Anatolia, that's today the non-European territories of Turkey, and north to the Caucasus Mountains. The Scientific American 1990. Let's move on to the Table of Nations and the spread of people and how they got dispersed from that area. And what we find is this: Noah's family tree, and you have, there's Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth. You have the line of Shem, Elam, Asher, Elamites through into Persia, Asher, an area of Assyria, and Amorites and Kashites through into the Far East and through into Africa, Israel into Egypt, and part into areas of Libya, Canaan into the land of we call Israel. Gomer, this is going west now. Any Welsh here? There's a few. I've got Welsh around me. Gomer, the Gomerians became the Cimmerians, and that's how you get Cymru, Wales, and they spread right through into Europe. Magog going up north with Meshech into areas of Russia and Scythia, it's called. Madai, Persians, Javan going to Greek islands right through, and so on. And I haven't got really time, unfortunately, to take a whole session just on that, but it's just amazing. Scientists have actually investigated it, show the accuracy of it. That shows you something of the dispersal of the people as they spread through from the area going far afield. Here's a quotation from somebody. It stands absolutely alone in ancient literature. The Table of Nations remains an astonishingly accurate document. Professor William Albright, who was the Dean of Biblical Archaeology. And another one. The so-called Table of Nations remains, according to all results of monumental explorations, an ethnographic original document of the first rank, which nothing can replace. Professor Coucher, who is a leading archaeologist. Tower of Babel. Well, they were called ziggurats in the old days, and this is one reconstruction based on what they'd have been like. And here something in a sketch. It was a temple dedicated to God, and very part of their religious system. Here you have them spreading further afield, and this is Pharaoh Joseph's step pyramid, 2600 BC or thereabouts. And it was a forerunner of the Egyptian pyramid, but very similar to the Sumerian one. In fact, some scholars reckon it was the Sumerians that actually came over by boat, and the very first pharaohs, the very first Egyptian civilization we know of came via Sumeria, what some would say. And this Egyptian pyramid, which of course developed, and instead of having 7 steps, it developed its own cultural style. Nevertheless, it was a burial place for a divine pharaoh. The Aztecs and other parts of the world, they had their own sort of pyramids spread to the world. Let's look at the Tower of Babel itself. Now, this is an interesting thing that was discovered. And if you look here, you have the sun. It's often referred to the ziggurats being like mountains. And here you have this, you have a whole load of people, and you have a very large giant of a person, which some scholars reckon could have been Nimrod, which is known in the ancient accounts as well as the Bible, and who was responsible for the building of the Great Tower, which we know as the Tower of Babel. There's an interesting quotation from Nebuchadnezzar. Now, I would think about Nebuchadnezzar, who was a very eccentric man, and he was a bit full of himself. In fact, he was obviously reminded of also Saddam Hussein, some of the things he got up to. But he's from the 6th century, and there's this inscription: I have completed, talking about one of these ziggurats, I have completed magnificence with silver, gold, and other metals, the most ancient monument of Babylon. I built and finished it. A former king built it, but he did not complete its head. In a remote time, people abandoned it without expressing their words. That was his understanding. So he came across this ancient, he refers to it again as being very ancient, ruined, and he rebuilt it for his own glory. It was at Corsica, and it seems to be the most ancient of the ziggurats. Tower of Babel is mentioned by some of the ancient historians. The Babylonian one from 1450 BC. The building of this temple offended the gods. In the night they threw down what had been built. They scattered them abroad and made strange their speech. The progress they impeded. They have the same thing about this temple. Whatever it was, that was offended the gods, and what Timothy said it was God, not the gods. And it was, the whole thing came to an end. The people were scattered, and there was a confusion of languages, just like it mentions in Genesis chapter 11. There's another one. They built a high tower where now is Babylon, and when it was already close to heaven, the gods sent winds and ruined the entire scheme. And men, having till then been all of the same speech, received now from the gods many languages. And that was a Greek historian called Avicenna, about 360 BC. And then we have the origin of language, which has been disputed. And some scholars reckon there were 11 foundational languages in the world, from all the other languages that have come out of that. But some have argued for a proto-language for the 11th, but it's so difficult to actually pin it down. It's been argued back and forth over it. However, one person says this: the science of language thus leads us up to that high summit from which we see it's the very dawn of man's life on earth, and where the words which we have heard so often from the days of our childhood and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech, assume a meaning more natural, more intelligible, more convincing than they ever had before. And that was Professor Max Muller, Science of Language, who was one of the leading exponents of language theory. I want to end with a couple of quotations that I come across. It's really said for me, it's in their own words, these are the experts, what I felt as I spent 25 years working through ancient history and trying to dig around and find out bits and pieces to see whether Genesis did have indeed some reliability, some historical truth, or was it just legend and legend. And it's a quotation That's a Howard Burns, a biblical archaeologist. I once thumbed through the book of Genesis and mentally noted that each of the 50 chapters was either illuminated or confirmed by some archaeological discovery. The same will be true for most of the remaining chapters of the Bible, both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Finally, another one. It has been my long experience that when the Bible is rightly understood and interpreted, it is never contradicted by archaeological and historical evidence, when that too has been subjected to strict scrutiny. And that's Professor Donald Wiseman, who is one of the world's leading Assyriologists. And there could be others too. I could have taken Professor Kenneth Hickson, leading Egyptologist, and various others. But I just want to leave it with that, and hope you've enjoyed tonight. I hope you found it interesting. I was struggling a bit with continuing going. But
Apa, pačka tuna.